Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with entrepreneur, teacher, engineer, and cycle breaker Katherine Lewis. She is the host of the Opportunity Made podcast and runs the Leon Foundation of Excellence, a program that helps youth heal intergenerational patterns of trauma. She also has experience as a teacher, software engineer, accessibility advocate, and employee resource group leader. As a teenager, she had to tell her dad to leave her life. It wasn't until 13 years later that they reconnected. Over that time, she struggled with her purpose, worth, perfectionism, and workaholism. She went from relationship to relationship and sought affirmation and significance in her career. That struggle has provided wisdom, discernment, and insight into her life. Enjoy this interview. Hi, Katherine.
Hi, Joe.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Excellent. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
So where are you coming out of?
Colorado.
Okay. I love it up there. I went up there to Castle Rock this summer.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
Oh, it was great. Yeah. I mean, we're landlocked here in Kansas City, so when we see contour and colors, we're excited.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, hey, it's great to meet you. And, I want to kick off our conversation with what we lived through for the last 3 years with COVID. How did you get through that time period, and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
That's a great question, Joe. During that time, I was working remote, as most of us were, and I was in a very small studio apartment. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and so some people may be familiar with, San Francisco was very much locked down, and it was hard to go anywhere or do anything. And so really, I just immersed myself in work, and I was working 7 days a week, probably 19 hours a day. Very unhealthy in my body strength and health in that regard. So it was physically challenging and mentally taxing as well. But at the same time, I was able to kind of go back and forth every once in a while and see my family as well. So I think we got some more time there. And, there's pros and cons to the whole experience.
Yeah, there certainly is. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a regular basis. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the children asks you, what do you do for a living? How would you answer that child?
Oh man, that's a great question, but there's so many responses. In my normal day job, I am an engineer. So in third grade terms, what that means is when you are interacting with things on your phone and you see the buttons and you see the colors, those are all things that I design. So creating the UI, the visual mock-up and what you're interacting with. Beyond that, I run a nonprofit. So I would tell someone, hey, if you want to learn leadership skills, if you want to learn how to achieve your goals, if you want to learn how to have that career or achieve that dream, maybe become that astronaut or that president, we work with young students to help them get there.
So talk to me a little bit about how you got to this point, in your profession and just kind of the way your mind works. Where were you born and raised, and how did these seeds become who you are today? Yeah.
So I was born and raised in Colorado, and I had a pretty average childhood, but sometimes it's not the things that are happening, it's the things that aren't happening that can affect you. And so for me, I grew up with a father who was a workaholic. He was working all the time. I definitely took some of those traits from him myself, but when I was a child, it affected me. I just felt neglected, felt like I didn't got a lot of time with him. He wasn't very interested in me. That was my perception at the time. And so I decided once my parents divorced when I was age 13 to just say, welcome in my life. And so we didn't have a relationship for 13 years. In that meantime, I immersed myself in work. So academics, extracurriculars, sports, just trying to achieve everything that I could and push myself as hard as I could. Now, there's a lot of rewards and benefits to hard work and being passionate. I was able to work at some incredible companies during college as part of my internships. And now I work for a really big, incredible tech company. And all of that is coming from those years and years of putting in the hard work. But it also was a tough time, just going through a lot of trauma and trying to heal those childhood experiences. And that led me to create the nonprofit that I'm running now. So that way, high school and college students don't have to go through that journey alone, that they can heal that intergenerational trauma in a community of other young leaders who are also seeking to do the same.
Talk to me a little bit about who heroes were for you. Who inspired you?
My hero was my grandmother. She was an incredible businesswoman. She was one of the first saleswomen in tech. And she worked with my grandfather, who was an inventor, to sell the technology that they were creating. And so she would travel all over the place and just made a lot of strides in her field. And later on, I got to know her, after she had retired was about when I was born. And we just had the best time together. She loved to travel. She had lots of stories. And she just was a very strong, confident woman and someone that I really looked up to.
So in the realm of technology, what story allures you the most? Are you more of the Bill Gates, Steve Jobs? Is there someone else in there? Who do you admire the most?
Well, between those two, I'll pick Steve Jobs. And the reason being is his emphasis on design and simplicity. That's something that he is known for across the company and in Apple products. And as a UX engineer myself, I have come to realize just how much skill goes into creating something that looks simple, that is intuitive, that is user-friendly. It's very easy to create something that has a lot of complexity. I think as humans, we like to over-engineer things. To create something that is simple and flawless and easy to use actually takes a ton of work. So I have a lot of respect for him.
Are you worried about AI? What's your take on it? I mean, I know people, it's emerged so forcefully over the last, say, 3-4 months. What's your take on it? How do you feel about it?
There's definitely a lot of momentum and a lot of different opinions. I would say it's a tool. And like any tool, we can use it for good or we can use it for bad. Some of the ways that I've seen it be used for good is in the realm of accessibility. Digital accessibility in particular. That's a lot of the tangential work that I do to my UX design. So we are seeing AI help people who may have a disability, who may be blind. It can help them identify what type of soda cans are on their countertop, right? Something that they can't see if they have lost their vision. So there's a whole lot of good that can come from the latest developments and whatever is yet to come. It just is up to us how we're going to use it.
So talk to me a little bit about, is there anybody on the planet right now that you would love to meet and talk to? Somebody that's influential, somebody that's inspirational?
That is such a good question. I think that there is one particular business leader that I would love to meet. His name is Graham Cochran, and he does a lot of business coaching and also has just a strong character, strong faith. And he's someone who I like to follow and would love to meet in person.
So, speaking of motivation, what's your motivation? What gets you out of bed every day? What gets you to want to accomplish what you want to get done?
Yeah, so my mantra is serve widely, give greatly. I've realized over the years that the best way to do anything is to do it from a place of service. So when I am in that space where I'm looking to add value to others, not what can I get out of this and how can I make myself significant, that is where I find the most fulfillment, but I also know that I'm adding the most value and impacting other people. So it's always from a place.
So talk to me a little bit about what's your best success story, professional success story that always puts a smile on your face?
Well, I don't know if directly someone would say that it was a success, but I used to be a second and third grade teacher. And while I was teaching, we had students of a very diverse need. So we had 27 different languages in the classroom. We had students who were academically behind by a year and a half. That led to just a lot, and sometimes that would lead to behavior issues. So we'd have kids getting upset and sometimes throwing chairs across the classroom or, writing curse words on the wall or whatever. And so while it seemed like a mess going through that whole process and working with students, and there were so many times where I felt like a complete failure, at the end, they were able to make a huge leap in academic success. And I was able to learn a lot about myself of how do I deal with adversity? How do I deal with moments where students are frustrated and I'm unable to meet their needs? And so, again, ultimately, it was a success through the process. It didn't feel like it, but it's just so rewarding to be able to work with students and see them grow. And there's so much that you learn about yourself through the process as well.
So of all of the things that you've done in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Honestly, I'm most proud of this moment in time. It's a moment in time when I am spending a lot more time with my family. I regular hours, not my 7 days a week. My priorities in life have shifted quite a bit, and it just feels a lot more wholesome and coming from that place of service rather than significance, which, as I mentioned before, I think that's what I was striving for through high school and college and kind of over the last decade, just really pushing for how can I find worth? How can I find significance? And I've now realized that that's not the way I want to go through life. So right now would be the best moment.
Excellent. So let's say you have a dream tonight and you run into a much younger version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, there is one piece of advice that has been most monumental, that has added the most value to my life. And that was the moment when, for me, I became a person of faith and accepted God and Jesus Christ. And that was something that changed me phenomenally. It only happened recently, but I would tell my younger self to do it a lot sooner.
So let me ask you this. Of all of the events that have happened on this planet, if you could see one historical event with your own eyes, what would you love to have witnessed?
I think the formation of the earth. That frankly would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone out there has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, that's a really good question, because there's days when I think one thing and days when I think another, and it tends to vary on, am I meeting my own expectations? Am I showing up in the way that I want? But fundamentally, I know that I have a huge heart, that I care about a lot of people very deeply. I love giving. If I could have unlimited time and funds, I would as many people as I could. It brings me a whole lot of joy. So I'm someone who's hungry for growth and who tries to be courageous, but also is broken and makes a lot of mistakes. So hopefully that's a good balanced perspective of myself.
So before I meant to ask you this with the third grade question. What was your dream when you were in the third grade? What did you want to grow up and become?
Yeah, I wanted to be president.
Oh, cool. Do you still have aspirations to do that?
Well, if I could do it from a place of genuinely be all of the other operational and political things that happen, then yeah, I would love to. Otherwise, I just want to be in a place where I can serve.
Excellent. So if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, get in touch, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably the best place. Go to LinkedIn and you can search either my name or search for Opportunity Made, and that URL will come up. I also have my own podcast, which is called Opportunity Made, and you can find that on Apple and Spotify. Those are probably the two best places.
Who would be a dream guest for your podcast?
Oh man, I love talking to everybody. So anyone who has overcome barriers, who's found ways to make new opportunity in their life, come on, let's do it.
I love it. Hey, thank you so much for your time today, Katherine. Best of luck with everything. I really appreciate it.
Joe, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.